We are all united.
Welcome everybody, and welcome to our session Education 4.0, who is looking at cybersecurity. Well, at this session, we will tackle the issue of cybersecurity given the context of the pandemic and the transition from traditional education to online education. It addresses the challenges for privacy and safety for children and youth who are the most impacted by online educational platforms, and the roles of each stakeholder in improving the trust of digital educational spaces for the purpose of expanding teaching and learning to the internet. So we will tackle the policy question of good privacy in cybersecurity practices and international mechanisms that could be useful to increase trust in online education. So at the end, we will be address the actions and measures taken by the different stakeholders, including the government, civil society, technical community, and private sector to address this issue by creating a safer environment for the education. We need to consider the fact that underage groups are especially exposed and vulnerable in this context. So today I have some special guests with me. I will proceed to read a brief biography of each of them. João Moreno Rodriguez Falcao. He is a cybersecurity specialist at Nii-Akwei, focused in IoT security and all cybersecurity schemes. We have online Eric Badger, that is the Security Operations Center specialist, and a penetration tester at the GCV Bank Limited in Ghana. At my right is Samaila. He's a cybersecurity expert holding a master's degree in cybersecurity and a manager from the University of Warwick, and he's also the director of the Cybersecurity Experts Association of Nigeria. In my left, we have Sávyo Morais, that is a professor and system administrator from the Federal Institute of Rio Grande do Norte. And I don't know if our last speaker is online. That is Nidhi. Nidhi is a senior project officer from the Center for Communication Governance at the National Law University in Delhi and vocal board of directors of the Youth Sig. So now I will start by asking some guiding questions to our panelists. So what do you think are the new forms of threats that arise with the transition from traditional education to online education, and what are their impacts for students? What has been done so far by the different stakeholders to tackle these issues? Have these efforts been efficient? So I will take the floor to João. So João, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicolas, for the question. To me, the most important issue when discussing about connecting children to educational systems, for example, in the pandemic, is that they were using these systems almost unattended. So I have an 11-year-old sister that lives with me. In the beginning of the pandemic, we had to rush away to her to connect or to continue studying. Even though I am a cybersecurity specialist, I hadn't done a proper configuration in the system, and yeah, it did not work in our case. So it is important to remember that most of all parents weren't right besides their children during the day because they were working. So kids had to figure out how to connect and communicate online without any assistant during the day. So they were immediately exposed to all sorts of issues because they could be digital harassed by other children or adults. In a lot of cases, the children had full control of their devices, even though they cannot consent in most applications they access. So yeah, I paid a closer attention to the efforts made by schools and colleges to adapt themselves In Brazil, we have seen a tendency of concentrating all educational resources in few companies like Microsoft, Google, Meta. And in a cybersecurity perspective only, I think this movement made children information safer. And why that? Because these companies put a lot of resources to protect their assets, therefore these children data. But when some schools decided to use these systems, but a lot of schools actually decided to use systems that were not designed for online education, like WhatsApp or Facebook. And these schools actually exposed children to online spaces almost non-controlled. So I think the biggest issue we have now is about the information that we are not able to control from these children, because when they are using educational systems, the platforms are designed to keep this information safe. And when some schools to connect more people, they try to amplify the ways of sending this content to the children. And this made these children exposed to systems that were not designed to them. So I think I see the different stakeholders in a diverse taking various approaches, like the cybersecurity community tries to check if these systems are safe and correct issues. I see also a lot of companies that acknowledge that people were using their systems to connect, to learn, and try to fix problems, like Zoom, that was thought to be a meeting platform, and out of sudden it started to be used in a lot of schools, a lot of workplaces, and they weren't ready to handle this much of responsibility. So even though they're great platforms, we had a lot of cases of Zoom bombing and digital harassment. So yes, I think we need to get together to really show that to schools and to the parents what are the advantages and disadvantages of using certain technologies.
Thank you, Joao. You touched on some important points there about the platform, about the devices, about the education for the educators to use this. So now I am heading to Eric, that is online. So Eric, the floor is yours. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I would look at this from the attacker's perspective, since like the malicious threat actors' perspective, those we popularly known as the hackers, since that's my field, I'm an ethical hacker and a pen tester. I'll look at it from that perspective. So first of all, the first threat I'd like to talk about from transitioning from the traditional educational infrastructure to the online is pertaining to phishing attacks. So when I say phishing attacks, I'm talking about cybercrime actors using schools, using institutions, network infrastructure as staging grounds to target victims and industries. So, and the reason I'm saying this is in my line of work, I've come across or I've encountered a lot of phishing messages after analysis and everything. You will find out that it is emanating from a school's domain, or there's a subdomain attached to a school's domain where the phishing attack is coming from. But when you go deeper, you will see that no, it is not coming from the school, but a threat actor has compromised the school's network, and they are using that as their playground or as their staging ground to send these phishing messages. or this phishing to attack other institutions. So that's the first threat I'll talk about. Another threat being that threat actors attempt, because now, and the issue is before moving to online, the traditional educational system, yes, we had IT support. We had institutions having their own IT department. We have institutions having their own network, which is intranet and in their own local environment. But now transitioning into online, these institutions did not, because of, I don't know, it may be because of time or how prompt that the issue came, they did not have that much time to look at the security posture of their infrastructure before moving the LAN or their intranet onto the internet. So they migrated most of their vulnerabilities that were locally onto the internet. And then it made also threat actors now start exploiting them as easily as possible. And another threat is schools, intellectual properties, universities having research centers and malicious actors just exploiting their systems to gain access to sensitive intellectual properties because of these vulnerable apps that were just migrated onto the internet. Because yes, students need to access the materials from the internet, so we need to move these things on the internet. And some of these attacks, when you look at some of these attacks, they are not any sophisticated attack, but they are common, something like common Google docking. Just common Google docking query, and then you will be able to access a school's database, have access to their infrastructure, common showdown, and just go on showdown, put just a common query, and you have vulnerable infrastructures and vulnerable systems on the internet. And so these are some of the trends that also came with moving from the tradition to online. Another thing is, another threat that I'll talk about are hacktivists and let me say newbies, people who are just new to hacking, because they are able to get access to a school's website which is vulnerable. They start defacing website. They start using it as a method to protest, to call for attention for a certain cause and all that. And then also the last threat I'll talk about is what our first panelists spoke about, Zoom bombing. And this is no I say it is no fault of schools though, because when this happened, or when we moved straight from tradition to online, yes, a lot of people were rushing to get students to be online to learn. Zoom also had their own issues because they did not at first they did not take security into play. They were not paying attention to security, and even not only schools but even higher places were even making mistakes with sharing their Zoom credentials. They share Zoom link, and it's having the username, it's having the Zoom ID and the passcode all attached to it, showing screenshots. And these are what other attackers also relied on, and then started bombing Zoom calls with nudity and what have you. So these are some of the threats that emanated from tradition to online. Now, the thing that has been done so far, I think a lot has gone into, and that one I'll give kudos to Zoom, their platform. A lot of changes have been made into their platform from the time it started. We moved online up to now. They have added a lot of security features, a lot of restrictions and all that. Also, another thing that has been done, and that has been also done quite very well, is awareness creating awareness all over. Even Zoom itself creating awareness, schools creating awareness, other platforms, Microsoft, Facebook, other social media platforms where students gather. They have created a lot of awareness on these attacks, on these cyber attacks, and then also schools have also been awareness has been created for a lot of institutions to know how to even move their gadgets from the traditional place onto online, how to safeguard, how to even enforce now security into their environment. And I think these are some of the things that has also been done, looking at organizations building now more secure apps, because a lot of people are attacking the apps. So organizations are also building a lot of now more secure apps because of what awareness creation. So this is what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Very interesting points about the Zoom bombing, about the awareness that is very important to prevent these kind of attacks. You mentioned phishing, you mentioned a lot of things. So now we are heading to Samaila here. So Samaila, please, you have 7 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicolas. I'm just going to speak from the Nigerian perspective, and I'll start with a phrase: digital literacy. So the first issue that going online has caused, it has exposed the truth about the situation of things, in the sense that a lot of people have little to zero knowledge on digital security. And so when you put those people into the cyberspace and you ask them to interact there in the educational sector, you are basically creating easy targets for the attackers. And so because a lot of people have little to no security knowledge, they were not able to do the basics that would ordinarily secure them when they're online. And when discussing this issue, I do not want to talk more on the kids, because I think that has been spoken about a lot already. But when you look at the teachers as well, the parents, a lot of teachers and parents don't have security knowledge. I've seen cases, I've seen schools where the teachers don't even have computers to use for their lessons. They do not use PowerPoint slides. So how do you expect those teachers to go on Zoom or go on Google Meet and do things the right way, or to use emails and use email securely? And so that's an underlying issue that has led to this lack of security when we talk about online learning or online education. And so some of the threats that have come out, obviously, yes, phishing has been mentioned. I would just like to focus on two other ones. Malware, in particularly what we call ransomware. That's a malware that locks your computer or encrypts your files until you pay a ransom. We've seen quite a number of universities and schools being targeted this way. So they have to pay money to gain access to the infrastructure. Another issue I've noticed is the case of email hijacking. A couple of schools have their emails, like the official email accounts, being hijacked and being used to send emails as maybe the vice chancellor or a lecturer or someone. And as we know, that poses a big risk in the grand scheme of things. So those are some of the issues I've noticed. There are other ones. If you look at the angle of the child, you talk about grooming, online grooming, because they're now more active online, and many of them end up joining social media. There are cases of financial fraud on social media. There's also child sexual exploitation and other kinds of issues like that. So on the angle of stakeholders and what they've done, from the Nigeria perspective again, I think there's been improved effort on both the part of the government or the public sector and the private sector as well. On the part of the private sector or the NGOs, my organization, that's the Cybersecurity Experts Association of Nigeria, has been creating awareness even before the pandemic began. That's one of our key pillars, and we try to build cybersecurity awareness. And we go to schools, we go to universities, we talk to the students, we talk to the teachers to enlighten them on the threats. And there are other NGOs. Another important one to mention is Cyber Safe Foundation in Nigeria as well. They've also done a lot of projects around educating young children and adults as well on the cyber threats that exist. From the angle of the government, recently the Nigerian government released a reviewed national cybersecurity policy and strategy, and this document has inputs that is meant to improve the security of different sectors, including the education sector. And so that's a plus on the side of the government. And so moving forward, we hope the document is implemented properly so that we can yield and enjoy the benefits. So there are several other inputs from other places, but I'll leave the other panelists to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Samaila. You touched also on very interesting point, like this multidimensional factor that not only the students, but the teachers, different Google Meet, about the malware, ransomware, these email hijackings, right? The online grooming, some cases of fraud, and the awareness, where we are hearing awareness a lot, so that maybe is the way. Now I am heading to Nidhi. So Nidhi, the floor is yours. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Nicolas. I think my colleagues have touched upon a lot of the current sort of problems that we have. The one that I think I would like to talk about is probably the violation of privacy that you have right now online, especially for children. So I think there's a Kaspersky report from last year which talks about how there's been a marked increase in threats which were disguised as popular e-learning platforms, which just increased as the pandemic went on, especially in the second half of 2020. So there have been a number of technologies that have been deployed to conduct online classes and assessments and attendance. And the more people rely on this, the greater that the level of threat is, especially to people's privacy. So these technologies usually collect a lot of data. They collect things like your name, email address, phone number, login credentials. They have communications like audio, video, text. One of the things is, depending on the platform you use, but however, most platforms are covered in this. If you look at, say, the privacy policies of things like WebEx or Google or Microsoft, all of them say that they can collect data while you're in a video conference, combine it with information from data brokers and other sources, and build consumer profiles, and that they can potentially tap into the videos for purposes like training facial recognition systems. So this is clearly one of the bigger, I think, privacy concerns that affects children, is that even if you're using one of these safer platforms, there's obviously always the potential for children's data to be misused. More importantly, even though you do have data protection laws in place, you have the United Nations Child Rights Convention in place, which says that children's privacy is to be protected. Most of these laws were not quite built to withstand the pandemic, and they haven't really been updated in a way where the data protection can effectively function at this scale right now. So there have been a lot of reports where once everything has moved online, schools or private actors can use platforms. Like there was a report coming out of Minneapolis school district where people used a platform called Gaggle, where they scanned billions of student emails, chat messages, and files to see what the students were talking about, to flag any potential concerns that they had. So I think the privacy of the students or the privacy of children is affected a lot because of this move to sort of online learning. And that is one of the bigger concerns that we have to sort of address right now. I do think that different stakeholders have tried to address this to some extent. As a lot of my colleagues have pointed out, many people are trying to impart some sort of digital literacy to explain to people that you have concerns surrounding malware, you have concerns surrounding hacking or Zoom bombing, but also generally to explain to people how giving out your data online works and how that can potentially be dangerous. There are also laws in place which are specifically geared towards children. So for that matter, if you look at things like, say, the Children's Online Privacy Protection or COPPA, that is a law which specifically is geared towards children and online safety. The problem there, of course, being that COPPA only applies to children 13 and under. So it doesn't quite capture all the kids who'd be affected by, I think, these online interventions. And then I think another thing that we have to discuss, and I only bring this up because my colleagues have also talked about this, is that while you do have edtech platforms, there has been a lack of resources and not everybody can really afford the secure platforms. And so there have been a lot of instances of, say, online classes not being conducted on, like, say, a proper platform, but rather being conducted on Facebook or WhatsApp, purely because of the lack of options that you have. And sometimes this can make things a little bit less secure. So I think that this is also something that probably policymakers have to sort of consider while they're dealing with these issues, is that the laws that are geared towards this cannot just specify that, oh, you must use a secure platform, because not everybody would have the infrastructure to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi. Very interesting points you touched on about these violations of privacy. There were a lot of reports in the pandemic about incidents at schools. So you also mentioned about the digital literacy. That is something, again, the awareness and about all the things. And this topic of the lack of resources, that is very, I agree with you, because not every school is prepared to afford cybersecurity teams or groups prepared to affront these incidents. And also, I think there was like a cultural bring your own device thing at some schools that also is very complicated to manage, yes, for all the teachers, also all the IT team at school. So now our last speaker for this first part, is Sávyo. So Sávyo, the floor is yours. You have 7 or 8 minutes.
Oh, so I got 1 more minute. Thank you. Just kidding. So first note here is that I work as sysadministrator, sysadmin, at the Federal Institute of Education, Science and Technology of the Rio Grande do Norte state in Brazil. We have courses since departing from the high school and technical courses to postgraduate and doctoral. So we have a wide range of students. But I'm not only talking about my institution, but other institutions that we as a federal network of educational institutes, including universities and other institutes from other states. I could get some experience and discussions from other universities, so from other institutions. So there are some things that we should point out here. Thinking in the short term, like today or tomorrow or the last year, we had to make a strong migration of how do you deal with the technical services, with the not only the technical services, the administrative services, and also how the classes will go. So as João mentioned, most schools migrated to Google Scholar, Google Meet for classes, Zoom for classes, and so on. And we have to do this migration fast. Considering those examples, we know that we have some privacy issues that must be under discussion for the next years, as this is not like a thing for that when the pandemic get over, this will be finished. So it will be different from now, but we still have to debate about that. And some other institutions decided for deploy their own systems, like they already have some administrative systems for bureaucracy and so on. But for example, for having the classes, they deployed, for example, the big blue button for video calls. And most part of the teams are not, they do not have deep expertise with this new platform. So this, in principle, brings many issues. Some other ones like contracted these services and hosted in the internal network looking for the privacy of the students and the whole institution. So this is a first part, and now I'm looking for a medium-term plans, like not only this part of deployment and looking for good open source platforms and make capacity building for the team who is managing this type of service, or contracting third-party services for this. Okay, I got a bit lost with the time, but I'll keep going.
No, you have the 2 or 3 more minutes.
Okay. So, yeah, contracting third-party services and so on, and keeping the services updated. And one really important thing that we are starting to do now in the federal network in Brazil of educational institutes is working in having, in fact, the cybersecurity policies, not only the sector in the IT or the computer emergency, the CERT teams, but having the policy in paper, in a document for the students, for everyone, and so on. So I think that the next step that we need to move on to assure a secured education 4.0 is working in a policy, cybersecurity policy for every institute.
Very interesting, Sávyo. From your point of view of a sysadmin, you raise new things like the more attention to the logistics, like the how to configure these platforms in this migration. So they need some expertise to do that. It's not like an easy task. So deploying your own systems could be a solution, I see. And contracting some parties always could be something, and this issue of the policy for students, or have something written about mechanisms or control, or at least what is good to do, what is bad to do, so they could know. Well, now we are moving to a second part of this workshop. I will raise a question, and we will have another round with the speakers. So the question is, what are the remaining challenges for guaranteeing cybersecurity and privacy in the online education ecosystem, and how can the youth, be more involved in policy making regarding cybersecurity in their educational environments? So, Joao, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes for this part.
Okay, thank you, Nicolas. I think at the first part of the pandemic, all workplaces, all schools were like, take whatever you need, but please give me a working system. So we pass through this, and now we are looking like, wait, what have you done? What information we delivered to these companies? What are the issues and the risks we are exposing our students? And yeah, schools, colleges should be a safe place to learn. People there should believe and be safe. They need to feel safe to understand things, to express themselves. So the first step we should do is to create the safe environment, to guarantee that everybody will feel welcome there. We saw a lot of suffering in these past months, and people should have the confidence that this information, the flaws that people show when they are learning, will be kept there. They will have this environment to express themselves. And in this cybersecurity aspect, I think the bring your own device policy is like a must, because we are teaching children, and these students in general, how to use technology too. So technology is integrated into our lives. We use it to learn, we use it to communicate, we use it to almost everything. So they need to use this learning place to know how to connect with these systems. So it's important that they know how to use their own cell phones and how to use their private settings and what are the consequences of installing, I don't know, any app they want. We need to have some control of it. I believe, actually, when talking about children, that these could not be unattended as it is now. Maybe the schools should have some control of the students' devices when they are in the educational spaces, because these children are responsibility of them in that place. And yeah, I think that's it. My
Yes.
point.
So when you are talking about the control, how do you see this could be measured, or how the educators or the school could take an advantage in terms of controlling which apps the students installed, or do you have some ideas or key points?
Yeah, this is actually very this is actually a very difficult question, because children need privacy too, but we are exposing them to places and to apps, devices that have almost none control. Like my sister now has a WhatsApp. So yeah, who are she talking to? And in a school, it's even more difficult, because you'll have like hundreds, thousands of students connecting every time and sending pictures, sending messages, sharing their discoveries of the world. And yeah, I don't know how to do it. It's difficult. It bugs my mind, because at the same time you want them to develop themselves. We have like the infinitude of the internet right in their pockets at all day. So yes.
Yes, it's always a very difficult question about the control or law enforcement when you think about this. So I am pointing to Eric. Eric, you have 5 minutes for this question.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start with this phrase that IT is not security. Meaning IT department is not the cybersecurity department. So one thing that's especially school management, a lot of school management should do is they should invest in cybersecurity. The same way they are investing in IT equipment, the IT gadgets, the IT department, having IT department in the school premises, they should also invest in cybersecurity. Because right now, IT department, what I normally see is IT department would fix those, fix the systems, put the systems in place. Cybersecurity is there to do assurance, to make sure that these things are in safe hands. These things are safe when it's on the internet. So schools that are owning their own data centers, that are having their own network, their own servers, should probably have a SOC in their environment. Because who watches over your network on the internet? Because right now you're exposing everything on the internet. Who is watching over them? IT will not be able to watch over them, because they are the people who implemented it. And the person who implements something are not the same people who should watch over them, because they would even go, they will not even look or overlook their flaws. So schools should also start investing into SOCs, start investing into IDS, that's in the intrusion detection systems, and IPS, start investing into SIMs to watch over their network, because this is where most of the attacks come from. My colleague from Nigeria made mention of ransomware attacks to institutions, and all of these attacks comes from or emanates from the data centers being not even even applications doesn't even have security logs that or a place where security logs are being put into or are being put there for people to do analysis and all that. Schools get defaced, and the next thing you hear is they have wiped the server, and then they have restored an old backup. Have you thought about how the compromise happened? You just clear it. It's going to happen again. But if we have systems in place, or we have a cybersecurity unit in place, even apps that schools develop, in-house apps that they develop, would be subjected to a pen test before it even goes online. And all of this helps. And so these are some of the things that I think should be put in place. Now, when it comes to students or the youth being involved in policy making, I would see that, yes, a lot of even these students are even engaging or are even learning more when it comes to cybersecurity, because right now cybersecurity has become something for the youth or something for the younger ones. Yes, the older generations will be there, but the youth are even doing more sophisticated things when it comes to the internet. The younger ones, I have a kid sister, like the first. I have a kid sister who certain things that she's able to do on the internet sometimes amazes me. I ask, who taught you this? I read it online. I saw it on a YouTube channel, so I read this online. I have as young people as DHS graduates, SSS graduates, who are even writing Python scripts to get passwords from public Wi-Fi's. So these are the things that some of the youth are even engaging in. These are some of the knowledges or the knowledge they are even acquiring. Now, what are we doing with these kids? What are we doing with the knowledge they are acquiring? If we have even a forum where they can even bring their contributions on board, they can even bring their contributions as to how to solve some of these challenges, some of these problems. It will amaze you some of the inputs these kids are going to, or the younger ones like us, are going to even bring on board. That would help solve a lot of situations and a lot of issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. You also touched very interesting points, like because these cybersecurity incidents, I think, at schools can lead for really bad trouble for students, staff, and schools also. And the youth are aware of that, and as you say, they could also help in terms of, or at least criticize, like the infrastructure, and they are also using white hats and black hats, so they could help with the things. So now I'm going to listen to Samaila. You have 5 minutes also to raise your points on this matter.
Thank you, Nicolas. I appreciate the things Eric said, and I think we have a similar situation in Nigeria to what he experiences in Ghana. Regarding the remaining challenges, I think, as we all know, in the tech industry, any gadget or any tool that is about 3-5 years old is almost obsolete. So, meaning that this tech space is very fast-paced, and so, because of these innovations, a lot of people get left behind. For instance, we talked about the issue of digital literacy, how a lot of people had to migrate their students online for learning. But we have a lot of schools that couldn't even do that. They don't have the computers, they don't have the networks. So a lot of students were left behind. A lot of students stopped learning during the pandemic. So we see that there are different paces or different communities, and so that's a big issue. That's a big challenge for me, and this ties to the issue of finances as well. A lot of countries or schools do not have the finance it takes or the money that's required to buy this infrastructure and to even hire the IT unit, talk less of a security unit as well. And yes, infrastructure deficits. In some countries, the cost of 1 gigabyte of data is way higher than in some other countries. So this kind of disparity in different locations pose different challenges. And when we talk about guaranteeing online privacy, I think it's kind of impossible, because the only way to guarantee online privacy and online security is to make the internet 100% safe. And as we know, there's nothing like 100% security. There are always going to be issues and threats. And sometimes these threats could be internal. So it could be coming from your own students, not necessarily outsiders trying to attack you. It could be coming from parents of the students. Maybe a parent could take a picture of their kid, and the picture has maybe a school badge showing. And so maybe someone who wants to kidnap that parent's kid now knows the school of the child. So sometimes the risks are from within. So these are issues to consider, and it makes it more difficult to guarantee on the privacy and the security of online learners. But like I said in my previous statement, one key thing to do, one thing we cannot stop doing, is enlightenment, cybersecurity awareness. We must keep enlightening people, because the threats are changing. We're talking about phishing attacks. The phishing, like the context in the phishing emails keep changing. It's not the same email that is being sent around the world. They keep modifying, they keep improving, they keep adding. Now they're adding ransomware to it. There are drive-by downloads as well, and other schemes are being used. Adware is also merged with phishing and other things. So as these schemes keep changing, we need to keep enlightening the users, enlightening the teachers, enlightening ourselves with the security professionals as well. That will help. Now, on the angle of youth being involved in policy making, I think it's important to be part of a community. Maybe in your school you join, you have a security community or a policy community you join. Even outside the school, you could join an association or a society, and you could try to attend events like IGF, for instance. I believe IGF gives us a good platform to discuss these issues and to discuss the things we think will take us forward in this regard. And the simple reason why it's important for youth to be involved, because the internet belongs to us, in the sense that we are the ones who are alive or growing up in the tech revolution, if I may use that phrase. So if we do not get involved, who is going to do it for us? Who's going to take us to the next level so our kids can come and enjoy a safer internet? So I think the youth have a key role to play. And we can do this by attending fora like IGF, or joining a community, or organizing our own local events in our communities for us to discuss these issues and see how we can influence policy making on the larger scale in our countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Samaila. Yes, I agree with you about the innovation, introducing new digital gaps, right, and disparities, because there are a lot of disparities among the different countries. Well, the resources thing is one of the most important thing also, because this could lead to these more vulnerabilities, right? If it's not attended, and these new threats like the adwares, phishing. So the issue of the youth to be more enlightened and attending or being involved in more security meetings, I think is something very important also. And I think it's already happening. We have seen a lot of youth being more involved in these security symposiums or meetings, in the IETF also. So very nice. And I will move to Nidhi. So Nidhi, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Nicolas. So I think that my colleagues have addressed the issue of cybersecurity quite well. Eric has talked about it. Samaila's talked about it. There have been increased instances of DDoS attacks, and that's definitely something that needs to be considered. But in my 5 minutes, I would like to, I think, focus on the challenges to privacy that you have. There are, of course, a lot of challenges to privacy that arise from this sort of shift to online education. And it is virtually impossible to make the internet 100% safe. But I think one of the ones that I would like to focus on is probably notice and consent. So one of the most vital elements that you have while you are protecting the privacy is the informed consent of an individual. And that means, of course, informed consent means that it needs to be qualified consent. So it can't just be that somebody takes, oh, I agree with terms and conditions, and you assume that you have the consent of the person. There are a lot of challenges, I think, specifically in terms of EdTech that comes with taking the consent of people. One of which was just highlighted by both Nicolas and Samaila, and that is things like socioeconomic divide. If you do not have the option of using something else, then you would, of course, have to use whatever is given to you. That is one of the problems. You do not have the sort of resources to afford something else, so you are sort of stuck accepting whatever is given to you, whatever device is given to you, or whatever platform is given to you. Another thing is, of course, that the digital literacy may be low, so you are not entirely certain of what is happening, so you accept the terms and conditions. Even when there are some kinds of sort of, say, legal protections in place, a lot of the times that just means that people say that instead of the children giving consent, you need to take consent from the parents. The parents themselves may not know how the data is being used, so that's still not qualified consent. So I think that before people sort of embark on this, it is important to some extent to explain to people what exactly happens when they give this data online, so that they can at least make the decision for themselves. There will obviously have to be some changes that take place in order for this to happen. The other aspect of this would be notice. That is to say that the people collecting the data should be more transparent and more accountable for the sort of data that they're collecting from children, from schools, and transparently make available like the sort of ways they're benefiting from it. And that is also so that you can protect the personal data of students. So you need to be able to ensure that corporations are not using this data in any sort of an adverse manner or in a way that could affect them adversely later. Speaking of then, I think how the youth can be more involved. I know both my colleagues have already talked about this, but being part of multi-stakeholder processes like the YouthSig, or joining, like say, organizations that do work around this, Youth Observatory, for example, speaking at things like the IGF, they are good starting steps. Another way I think that the youth can sort of participate is that you could build a network from other, like with other people from around the world. So you can have slightly more diverse perspectives and have like a slightly more diverse view on what is happening. So you have a more, say, wholesome plan of how to deal with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi. I think you touch on more interesting topics like informed consent, resources, again, and well, the issue of cooperations not using the data, some kind of diverse perspectives between all stakeholders also. So, Sávyo, I am pointing to you. You have 5 or 6 minutes to respond this one.
Thank you for 1 extra minute again. So, before starting, 2 side comments. When we talk about security, we also have to talk about reliability. So I'm not using more that timing. I'm using my smartphone to this. And the second side comment is that I was not going to touch this point, but please, but thank you, Eric, for saying that the people who are managing systems that can't have decisions about security, because we are trying to make the things work, and security make the things make maybe sometimes hard to work. So thank you for pointing this out. But I think that all the other speakers had pointed some important things out. So I have now. You put me in a trouble to point something out, but I have one issue for you too. So this is actually a call to action, to work, to use the youth community to get in touch with the students collectives, like the in high school, the students units, in the university too, to talk about them, about the need for security, the need for privacy, and to give them some material for asking in the institutions for the cybersecurity policies. I think that this is the main point. There are many and many documents talking about that. Maybe not exactly about the cybersecurity in the education, but most part of the cybersecurity issues, not only cybersecurity issues, but actually security in the general time, like for firefighters, for airplanes, and for many things. The principles are the same, and this is the base for everything. But specifically from the cybersecurity point of view, I think that us as the youth community, we can take those documents and each one in his own country, reach out these academic communities, the collective that have that represent the voice of the students in the university and the school, high school and primary school, so we can reach them, talk with them about that, and make some force to have good cybersecurity policies at any school or university.
So this idea of the capacity building and for the academia and also trying to represent the youths in these spaces also is always very important. But, well, we know that school networks are easy target for cyber criminals, right? What schools can do to shore up the defenses to limit the damage, really? That is my question now, so you are free to speak. Joao, if you want.
Oh, okay, so thank you. One experience that I can share is about my university. In Brazil, we have a federation of public universities. So there are a bunch of systems that are integrated between these universities, and this approach could be a good solution to the cybersecurity lack. The lack of specific cybersecurity teams in schools, because cybersecurity needs maintenance, and maintenance it has a high cost actually. So when we talk about securing the websites, the networks from these schools, a good approach could be formatting and create some school, use these schools federations to try to implement a same system with a coordinated cybersecurity approach. I would like to remember too that users, me included, will always choose the simplest approach to make a system work. This is not a problem actually, but the way to deal with this and make insecure methods and use of technology to make this secure, you need awareness. So if you know that there is a problem of sending sensitive data of the students from a public channel or something like that, if you understand the problem, you will be able to do you will choose to do the right way. So I think it's also a matter of bringing awareness and showing that the security issues are not like something to bother you. It's actually something that you need to do because you need to protect yourself. And this kind of mentality change, it's really needed when we are talking about cybersecurity. So when talking about cybersecurity in schools, it's even more important because people are learning there. Yes, that's it.
Thank you. Do the speakers want to raise more points about this issue? So,
Yeah, hello.
yes, Eric, go ahead.
Okay, so what I'd like to add to is this is something that I am doing. I'm trying to even encourage in Ghana here. What I'm doing now is I'm forming a lot of cybersecurity clubs in the universities, because now looking at cybersecurity here in Ghana especially, most of the youth wants to now engage themselves in ethical hacking, in hacking. And I looked at it in this perspective that if you leave them to learn on their own, it will be difficult for you to guide them, or it will be difficult for you to be able to what word should I use? To be able to govern them when it comes to issues pertaining to ethical hacking, pertaining to hacking and stuff, because most of them will not even know or will not even have the idea what the consequences are in let's say scanning someone's network. So this is one thing that I'm doing, that I'm also encouraging that others can also start doing, especially those of us who are in the professional field, that we form clubs in most of these universities, because yes, those are the places where the students now start to learn and certain cultures, certain behaviors. So if you form these clubs in the universities, you end up now teaching these kids the right way, and then even adding the side effects or what the consequences in doing some of these acts, what it brings, it can bring to them. And then also now, if somebody or if these young ones sees you as, let's say, their mentor, somebody who is teaching them, somebody who is educating them, creating awareness for them, you would be able to guide them, and then even tell them what to do and what not to do. When you speak, they will listen, as to someone who learned on his own and then doing his stuff, and then you trying to come and tell him that, no, we don't do it this way, we don't do this, don't attack the system, don't attack this, don't do this. They will not even mind you because they learned their thing on their own. But the place where they see you to be somebody who is offering them free tuition on some of these things, they start calling you their mentor, they start regarding you as their mentor. You'll be able to curve them and then nurture them, and then even push them from even those who wants to even move into, let's say, black hats or something, move them into the enterprise world or yes, the enterprise world, so that their skills can be beneficial instead of they using it to do other thing else. So this is also another submission I would like to add on.
Thank you, Eric. I think also that the mentors part, doing this awareness for the youth that are trying to do some ethical hacking or something, I think is very nice, because they need to be, or they will need, they will feel that like they are in some manner protected by the school. So there are some things that could be done in that sense, I think. So I don't know if any of the speakers was to raise on another point.
Yeah, I think just one more thing that I would add is that potentially what could be done is that when, of course, we've missed the ball on that a little bit, but we can still do that, is just to introduce small classes or workshops while you're conducting online schools, where teachers can just at least discuss the basics of cyber hygiene. A lot of the students have been told that their classes move online, but they haven't really been taught how the online system works. So I think one of the simpler ways to sort of start out would to just have teachers in school who can tell children what this means, especially for the younger children, so that they are aware of what the dangers online are. So I think that would be like one of the smaller steps that people could start with.
Excellent. I think this idea, you raise a very interesting idea to bring some workshops to the schools and do talk about cyber hygiene. I think as we receive it sometimes, well, at least in my school when I was a child, I received some groups of people talking about environmental things, or we received some things talking about you need to brush your teeth, so for the hygiene. So this idea of doing some workshops about, well, the online education, cybersecurity things are very good for the students to be aware of what are the dangers, because if not, they will be in the context of all these vulnerabilities happen, and maybe they didn't know about that. So I think it's a good approach. I have here Samaila that wants to make also some comments. So Samaila.
Yeah, so I strongly agree with Eric and Nidhi, and it's important to guide the students. It's important to show them what is right and how to do it. Something that's also, or rather a good way of helping them remember these cyber hygiene tips is if it's a school that has access to their email accounts and things like that, you could be sending them maybe monthly newsletters, short. You have to make it short because kids have little attention span. So you have to simplify it, you make it simple language, and you make it short. Just maybe a tip a week or a tip a month, so you don't also spam them. Another way is you can have posters in your classrooms, or remember to lock your screen when you're using your laptop. Remember to put a passcode on your... So just basic tips you can just put on the walls in the classrooms around the school. It helps to remind people. I've seen organizations that do this, where they do it so that their employees remember these basic security steps. So this can also be implemented in the schools. During my undergraduate studies, we had a course called ITC 101, and it was basically a course on Microsoft Office. It was compulsory for all students, regardless of your program. So if schools recognize that cybersecurity is an essential service, and it's not just a service you use while you're in the school, it's something that you use at home. You use maybe when you graduate in your work environment, just the same way we use Microsoft Office today in our work environment. It's more or less like a life skill you learn. It's a survival skill. So if schools see it from this angle, then they could also organize a simple course, maybe 1 credit hour course or 3 credit hour course that students could learn compulsorily. You must do it once before you graduate. That way, you're prepared for both your life at school, life at home, and life after school.
Wow, very interesting points also. So now we are going for our third part of the meeting. That will be some discussion. So we invite all online attendees and on-site attendees, one-on-one, if you want to go to microphone and make some questions. Do we have some hands on the Zoom? Oh, we have one question here, so you can go to the mic here at the conference. Please state your name and organization, as always.
Fabi from Federal Ministry of Communications, Abuja, Nigeria. My first point is, isn't there a way of putting something like a filter in the school system so that the contents are monitored? That's my first question. Second one is the man that spoke from, can't remember his name now, from West Africa. He spoke about putting in place SOC. And he spoke something again about IDS. I want him to tell us more about the IDS. I know about SOC. I know about SAS also. Thank you.
Nice. So who wants to address this one? Sowah, okay.
I wanted you to go because you're a pen tester. But yeah, because he's talking about filtering, IP filtering for websites. So I think you can just explain that briefly.
Okay, actually I am a pen tester too, but let's go. The main issue about this kind of filter is that most of the sites, thankfully, now uses encryption, and some cell phones in the economic mode for data uses a VPN, some sort of treatment in the data before this is sent. So this diminishes a lot of how to control this kind of content. But yeah, I agree with you. We could do some approaches to it, but actually I think they must be ineffective because children, okay, they are going to connect to the school internet, but if the school internet blocks Facebook and the kid want to open it, it will just like switch to the mobile network, and again they will return to this unattended state. So yeah, I think if we do control it in the network, the school network, it will be better than do nothing. But I think that in a lot of cases, this actually won't do the effectiveness that we wanted to. Another thing is that this approach must be done with the families too, because the families must understand that they need to check the cell phone to understand what their kids are to what their kids are doing in their cell phone. Yes, because if you implement the right boundaries in the devices, you will diminish a lot the risk and the exposure of these kids and actually their data too.
Thank you, Joao. I think, Samaila, you have something to add to this?
Yes, so like Sowah rightly said, you can't always monitor them because they could go to their mobile data if you use some web filtering measures on the school network. What is important is about the kids having principles or having a knowledge of what is right and wrong. So at the level of the parents, if the children are being taught well, if they are groomed well, then they know better than to do certain things. At the end of the day, even we adults in the work environment, we are unpredictable. Even where there are security policies, we do not follow them. Even we, the security guys, don't follow all the security policies that we advocate for. So at the end of the day, the main thing is if the children know what is right and what is wrong, they are less likely to do the wrong thing. And even if they do the wrong thing, they know that they've done the wrong thing. So they might not do it as frequently as one would expect. So I think parents have a huge role to play because they cannot just leave the kids without enlightening them. And that's why the parents need to be enlightened themselves, because if they do not know, how can they teach? Right, so I think this is an issue for parents to get involved in. The children must be able to trust you, to share their experiences with you and let you know what they are doing, so they don't have to hide and go behind your back to do certain things. And then I think the issue on IDS, Eric, do you want to comment on IDS issue to just briefly explain what it is?
Okay, sure. So IDS is like the full name I said earlier, is Intrusion Detection System. These are tools or devices or software applications that monitor network or a system for malicious activities. We have a lot of IDS, like example I'll give is CrowdStrike. So what this does is it monitors activities, it monitors your network, it monitors whatever you are doing on the network. If you should install, let's say, CrowdStrike on your endpoint users, desktops or laptops or machines, you are going to have, let's say, an overview or an eye over every system that is in your network, far and near. So if you have a network of let's say, a whole community, and you have, let's say, an IDS in place for the whole community, you'll be able to sit at one point, maybe at your data center or at your SOC monitoring, and then have an overview of everything that is going on, and what was done, what was, even if a file was copied from a system, if there is something that is going on, somebody has opened a website that is not supposed to be open, a malicious website, or what have you. So this is what an IDS seems to achieve. So if I mention IDS, so it just it's a detection system that detects network activities, that detects malicious or non-malicious activities, anything at all that is going on a network. So it's like you having an eye over your network environment anywhere you are. I don't know if I've explained it much clearer for him. Thank you.
Very nice. So we have a question that is very related to what we talked. So I will just read it, and maybe you can address as we have some extra minutes. Frank de Almeida said, for me, as an educator, the main issue is the control of the content. The research takes you for some content not usable for children. Should enterprise like Google could monitorize effectively the contents? How should they do that? Yes, you have a question? Okay, go to the mic, yes. And every person in the Zoom also, if you want to raise your hands, you can also participate orally.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Omar Shoran for the record from the Libyan Internet Society. Okay, I'd like to add some words to the colleagues' notes about the usage of internet for kids. All right, we are living in a digital era, and you cannot prevent your kids from using the technology. Using the technology for the kids is a sword with two edges, So they have positive and negative, effects. My question to the speakers is it the right time to encourage the industry to make intervention in this effort? I mean, unicorn companies like Google, YouTube and Facebook and etc. So I believe this is the right time to encourage them to make their part, to make their homework regarding because awareness campaigns and using the traditional policy for cybersecurity in schools and in primary schools and in education will not be enough to prevent this issue. I believe encouraging the industry to put their efforts together with the community to prevent these cybersecurity issues. I believe so. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And okay, Sowah, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think most of the companies went to the easiest approach possible, which was like, we know that there are children using our system, but they shouldn't. So we will not do anything because they are circumventing they are not on. They are not valid users. Like, they lied in the entrance and inserted fake data. But so when we find these children, we will just kick them out. But this isn't a practical solution. I think I created an Orkut like 1,000 years before my rated age. And yes, these companies need to know that their products are being used and need to prepare themselves to that. In that sense, Google actually already does control content in their devices. I configured cell phone for my sister. It was a little bit painful and took a lot of time, but I could manage to select what apps she was going to use. I was able to choose what were the websites that should be blocked, or which one of them were exceptions to her. But yeah, this was a great effort to do it. So maybe it should be more simple, I think, because we know that everybody will use these systems, and we must be prepared to that.
Excellent. I think that as we are like 8 minutes for the end of the session, I could read more one question that we have here in the chat, and then we go for the final remarks, which of the speakers will speak. So I have a question here from Eileen. She said, "Hi everyone. Not sure this was mentioned before, but I really like the concept of the educational flyers for students to be aware of the dangers and best practices for the cybersecurity practices. Do you have any suggestion at which age it could be done? When do you consider children, for instance, could be fully aware on secure internet usage?" Thank you. So, who want to address this one? Samaila?
I could address the question.
Okay, Nidhi, go ahead.
Yeah. I think Eileen's actually touched upon a topic which is one of the biggest problems that people have right now in regulating, especially legally regulating children online, is that there is no real age that demarcates anymore, especially for children online. So universally, the age is still accepted at 18. But depending upon the country, sometimes like the US only really has like the legal protections up to the age of 13. Some states have it to 16, and some states have it to 18. I do not think that it is really possible to have one age where you can say now that, okay, above this age, all the children are completely cognizant of their actions online. Because this depends on a lot of things. It depends on like the country you're from, the culture you've grown up in, how much access you've had to technology, even your socioeconomic background. If you've had free access to the internet for a long time, you're probably a lot more used to how it works. And if you hadn't, even if you've not had a lot of access to say in the internet and you're 17 years old, you still wouldn't have a lot of idea. So I think that contextually, probably this is something that you can't really have a law on. But better, I think, in terms of, say, if it's just introducing the education, it might be better to start this earlier. Because now you have like younger and younger children going online. So it's probably better to start this towards, say, elementary school instead of waiting for high school or till people turn 18. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Samaila, do you want to comment? So, 30 seconds comment?
Yes, I will merge it with my closing remarks. So I must say that cybersecurity is looked at from the angle of the people, the process, and technology. So even as you're enlightening the people and checking their behavior, you must also have processes through your policy that people know to take, and there must be technological interventions. That's why we talk about security measures and controls, right? And I think when working on the awareness posters or emails or content generally, you have to customize it based on your demographic. What you would put for 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds won't be the same content you use for 15-year-olds because their knowledge or their ability to grasp is different. And I think the big tech names like Omar mentioned earlier, I think they're doing some things. For instance, we have Netflix Kids. We have screen time on iOS devices and things like that. So I think some effort has been made. Generally speaking, cybersecurity must be treated as an essential component of any system. It must not be seen as an afterthought. It must not be treated as an option because we are in digital space and we need cybersecurity in digital space. Thank you.
Wow, very interesting points. You, Sávyo, want to address something?
Yeah. I think that this point actually must start at the same time as our mom says, don't talk to strangers by the streets, or look at the both sides of the street when you are crossing. So this is not security in a another planet. Like the internet is in our lives, so it has to be the same progression of knowledge and awareness as we learn how to care about our own life. So this is not, I mean, not that direct to the point, but it's maybe a reference to working policies for creating a curricula or something like that for kids in the schools.
Nice, very good remarks on that. So now I will rapidly shift to the closing remarks. So I will start with Joao. 1 minute per speaker.
Okay, thank you. Would like to thank you all for being here. This debate about cybersecurity in education is essential because the minds are there. We need to form people that are able to understand technology and know what are the risks and things that they should or shouldn't do in the internet, not only like to protect from the outside, but also to prepare the person to this unprotected world that they will be. So yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, Joao. Moving to Eric now. Eric.
Yes, okay. So my closing remarks would be that cybersecurity is for it's everyone's obligation, it's everyone's concern. Like Samaila said in his remarks, closing remarks that cybersecurity is comprises of the people, the policies, that is the process, the technologies. So you cannot leave any of them out. So as we get the technology in place and we get the people, creating awareness for the people, we should also follow some policies. We also follow some directions. We should adhere to these policies because trust me, online education has come to stay. But it's not moving now. Online education has come to stay. So we need to adjust. We need to also adjust ourselves to this kind of new change, and then conform to it, and then just follow the policy and the direction that has been given. And I think everything would work out nicely. Thank you.
Yes, I really agree with you that this is a very complex thing for how the future of this will be is like a really complex matter. I will rapidly read a comment that is on the chat that Angela Nimba said, just to add a comment to the discussion, this is an issue that does not have a straightforward solution. The approach should be a multi-layered one, given all complexities. It should be a partnership between parents, schools, and service providers. It takes a village. So we all agree on that. And now I am moving rapidly to Nidhi, for the closing, your closing remarks, and then Sávyo, and we are finished.
Thank you, Nicolas. I think I just want to sort of reiterate that everybody has a right to privacy, and this especially includes more vulnerable groups like children. So it's important that this right is properly educated as they move online, especially with so many of them coming online now that education is moved online. So it's important that we have sort of safeguards in place to protect their privacy and safeguard their data and protect them from adverse sort of actors online. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi. So, Sávyo, you are closing the session.
Okay, a big thing to care about, but I have just a few things to say, reinforcing what I have said in the starting of the session. If you are in the head of one school or university, please invest in capacity building for your team, for your IT and your security team. Give the right roles to the right persons. Separate the IT team, as Eric mentioned, from the security team. Make some investment in creating your cybersecurity policy and your cybersecurity culture in the institute, in your university or school. And if you are a student, use your voice and ask for security and privacy. just this. And thank you very much for being present and on site and online.
Thank you, everyone. Really was a very interesting session.